For thousands of years, survival meant knowing exactly which wild plant to pull from the dirt. Crushing specific leaves on a muddy battlefield meant the difference between a minor scar and a fatal infection. Today, we walk right past those exact same plants on our way to the drugstore. We traded the deep knowledge of our backyards for the absolute convenience and speed of a modern pharmacy aisle. That convenience had a biological trade-off. When early chemists moved away from using the whole plant, they started isolating single chemical compounds, removing the natural secondary elements that buffered side effects. Look at this split in how we treat ourselves today. On the left, those isolated synthetic compounds are largely formulated to silence a symptom fast, turning off your body's alarm bells. On the right, traditional whole plant medicine relies on systemic healing, actively repairing the tissue causing the alarm in the first place. We are analyzing 20 clinically backed historical plants to identify exactly where their multi-compound chemistry provides an advantage over synthetic shortcuts. Navigating these remedies requires more than a list of names. You need to understand the context of each, who they serve, and the exact moment they become necessary. By categorizing these medicinal plants based on specific, real-world health scenarios, you regain control over your own healthcare. You get to choose when to prioritize immediate convenience and when to avoid unnecessary pharmaceutical side effects. Let's start with the wilderness triage category. If you hike, camp, or work outdoors, you are eventually going to need immediate, reliable first aid miles away from a sterile bandage. If you slice your hand on a rock, crushing fresh yarrow or plantain weed directly into the cut initiates a rapid hemostatic response. The compounds in the leaves physically force your blood to clot faster while actively fighting off surface bacteria. The trade-off here is straightforward. You have to be 100% confident in your botanical identification skills, and you must accept applying non-sterile organic matter directly onto an open wound. Then there's Usnea, also called old man's beard. This pale green lichen delivers usnic acid, a compound so powerful that modern research shows it fights off some strains of antibiotic-resistant bacteria right there on the trail. The catch with Usnea is location. It acts as an environmental sponge, meaning you can only harvest it safely in highly remote, unpolluted forests, far away from car exhaust and industrial runoff. For soft tissue injuries like a severely sprained ankle, there is Comfrey. Our ancestors called it knit bone because applying it topically delivers allantoin, a compound that physically signals your cells to multiply and repair damaged tissue faster. But Comfrey comes with a strict biological guardrail. The plant contains pyrrolazidine alkaloids. If you try to brew it into a tea and ingest it internally, it will cause severe liver damage. It works safely only restricted to the skin. There is a reason these specific plants earned their battle-tested reputations. In historical field hospitals where sterile gauze and synthetic antiseptics simply didn't exist, doctors relied entirely on the aggressive antimicrobial properties of wild botanicals to keep soldiers alive. For immediate acute injuries in the wild, these plants offer incredible utility. You just have to carry the responsibility of precise identification and non-sterile preparation. Moving from the trail to the house, we find the everyday pharmacy swap. These are the plants for families looking for natural, budget-friendly alternatives to over-the-counter drugstore fixes. Take Meadowsweet. Long before synthetic pain relief existed, this fragrant white flower was the go-to remedy for fevers, headaches, and joint pain. It worked so well that early chemists isolated a specific compound, salicylic acid, synthesizing the first batches of modern aspirin. But isolating that single chemical created a new problem. Standardized synthetic aspirin is notoriously harsh, frequently causing severe irritation and microbleeding in the stomach lining. Meadowsweet relies on whole plant synergy. If you brew it as a tea, you still get the exact same pain-relieving salicylates, but you also consume the plant's natural secondary compounds that actively protect and soothe the stomach wall at the same time. We see this same trade-off in respiratory health. For centuries, mullein and white horehound were the standard treatments for heavy chest congestion, long before synthetic cough syrups hit the market. Pharmaceutical syrups usually contain chemical suppressants. They numb the reflex, keeping your lungs quiet. Mullein and horehound are natural expectorants. As this diagram shows, expectorants don't silence the cough. Instead, the plant compounds trigger bronchial secretions, thinning the thick mucus and forcing your lungs to physically expel the trapped bacteria out of your airway. The trade-off for the user is comfort. Choosing the plant means you have to spend the time brewing a tea, and you have to endure the physical, exhausting act of a productive cough in order to actually get well. For everyday household ailments, whole plant remedies let you avoid synthetic side effects. But you pay for that benefit with preparation time and a willingness to let your body do the hard work of clearing itself out. Then there are the chronic condition sufferers. If you are exhausted by relying on endless tubes of steroid cream for eczema or psoriasis, you need a different category of plant. Oregon grape and sea buckthorn are deep systemic healers. They contain rare fatty acids and alkaloids specifically adapted for compromised skin barriers and chronically inflamed membranes. Because these oils penetrate the epidermis to deliver essential omega-7 fatty acids and triterpenoids, they provide the building blocks necessary for cell regeneration. Instead of just trapping moisture on top, these compounds support the body's internal process of rebuilding a damaged lipid barrier. Internally, we look to heavy-duty botanical tonics, like elecampane root for deep lung infections or yellow dock for sluggish liver clearance. The immediate hurdle with these tonics is physical. They are intensely, unapologetically bitter, but that bitter taste is a required biological trigger. It forces your digestive system to ramp up bile production and initiate waste clearance. The real trade-off here is temporal. This is structural, architectural repair of your body. It demands daily compliance over a period of weeks or months. Here is how to visualize this choice. On a chart tracking treatment speed versus depth of healing, plants like Oregon grape, sea buckthorn, and elecampane sit firmly in the top right corner, extremely slow but deeply systemic. Standard drugstore options sit in the exact opposite corner. A topical steroid or synthetic decongestant acts within minutes, but the physiological repair is incredibly shallow. For lingering chronic issues, plants offer genuine repair. You just have to be willing to trade the immediate comfort of a quick fix for a long-term commitment to your own biology. Moving from theory to practice requires translating these 20 remedies into a single, actionable decision path. This logic flow decides your path. For an acute need, a minor cut routes to plantain, but a severe infection routes immediately to a doctor for antibiotics. For a chronic issue, like eczema, the tree routes you to root cause healers like Oregon grape. When it comes to extreme emergencies, absolute standardization, and zero-effort convenience, modern pharmaceuticals easily win. But when you need biological synergy, chronic root cause healing, and an escape from a cascade of systemic side effects, plant medicine takes the lead. However, keep the history of sassafras in mind. Native Americans used it effectively for centuries, but modern chemistry revealed it contains safrole, a compound linked to liver toxicity and cancer when consumed in high amounts. Just because a plant is natural does not mean it is unconditionally safe for daily use. This is where modern science becomes an asset rather than a replacement. It filters ancient botanical wisdom, pointing out toxic liabilities in plants like sassafras, while perfectly validating the antimicrobial miracles of plants containing berberine. A sophisticated approach to health uses clinical evidence to validate traditional knowledge, ensuring that every medical decision is backed by both history and data.